Okay, this is a quick review, so let's get it on. Namco Museum 64 for the Nintendo 64 collects 6 classic Namco arcade hits, including Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Dig Dug, and Pole Position. This is the only Namco Museum edition to hit the Nintendo 64, whereas its rival Sony PlayStation got 5 compilation discs worth. But even so, you're getting 6 of the very best, or at least very notable, Namco arcade releases in this compilation cartridge, even if it is lacking in the variety department. Anyone who is remotely familiar with any of these games featured in Namco Museum 64, whether you've played the arcade originals or a home conversion somewhere along the line, will be right at home playing these, as the games are nicely ported over into this N64 compilation. It's pretty much the same games that you played before. You're still clearing mazes of dots in Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, you're still shooting down space bugs in Galaxian and Galaga, you're still qualifying for races in that one track that never changes in pole position, and you're still committing mass genocide with your bicycle pump of death in Dig Dug. Of course, you could tweak the options for each game, the number of lives and difficulty, what have you. You could check out tips to help you out, and you could record your high scores, which is all nice stuff. Control works rather well for the most part among the games. You could either use the D-pad or the analog stick to move about, but the only time I found the analog stick to be any useful and any good would be in pole position, where you really have that extra precise control over your car, as long as you master the analog stick, that is. For the rest of the games, the D-pad will serve you just fine. In fact, for the pack titles, I find controls better with the D-pad than it is with the Finicky analog stick. With that, I swear to God, it's going to snap at any second now. It's just one hard tilt and psst. But I digress. Sounds pretty good for the most part. Almost arcade perfect, if not that. The same can be said for graphics. It's almost on par with the arcade originals and whatnot. You have a simple, straightforward menu with all 6 games to choose from, nothing more than that, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. In fact, the only complaint I have with this collection, Namco Museum 64, is the lack of variety in the selection of games. 2 pack titles and 2 space shooters featuring space bugs account for 2/3 of the total collection, and despite some differences between the two each genre, it's pretty much the same game between the two of them. Especially true with Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, which is the same gameplay for the most part, despite Miss Pac-Man having more mazes and bouncing fruit. Personally, I would have gladly traded in Galaxian for Xevious. There's no space bugs in that one, and it's a much better game, but I digress. On a whole, Namco Museum 64 is a competent compilation cartridge that manages to bring home a near-perfect arcade conversion of 6 classic Namco titles, and is most definitely a worthwhile addition to any Nintendo 64 library. However, if you already have a Namco Museum collection on either PlayStation or any of the more recent consoles, then there's very little point in picking this one out outside of adding another game to the N64 library. On its own merits, it's not too shabby. Wish there was a little more variety, but other than that, it's a solid set, can't complain.